Hear the vibe. Pumped up to get ready for the fight. Big dreams, one chance, be the star. I'm the winner coming out of the dark. No fear, getting ready for the ride. Yeah, stepping into the light. No limit, aim high. No limit, the prize is mine.
Step out as a motivator. Let them know that the weight's up. That's how we know when we level up. Hey, that's how we know when we level up.
Level up. All we know about is level up. Are we ready not to level up? You know we fall and we get up. Level up. All we know about is level up. Are we ready not to level up? It's time, get up.
Back against the wall, still I'm standing tall. Know about the ball, I got my fan with me. All we know is ball to empty out the mouth. The chosen one they call, I take my fan with me. Know about it if you tell, know you're breaking codes. But your credibility and all fall like dominoes. Can you really take a stance? All I wanna know. Need me real ones when it's time to go. Stepping in, elevator. Listen to all the haters. That's all we know when we level up. Yeah, that's all we know when we level up.
Level up. All we know about is level up. Are we ready not to level up? You know we fall and we get up. Level up. All we know about is level up. Are we ready not to level up? It's time, get up. I found out I'm not alone. 'Cause I'm just like you. There's no failing when we fight. We're not afraid to. Level up. All we know about is level up. Are we ready not to level up? You know we fall and we get up. Level up. All we know about is level up. Are we ready not to level up? It's time, get up.
ESL Mobile Open is brought to you by DHL and Pay Safeguard.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the ESL Mobile Open Asphalt 9 Legends Show. I'm Liam Smith, and joining me, of course, is Lethal for this one. Harry, buddy, how you doing? We're back together again at last.
Yeah, I've been good, mate, and it's nice to see you once again for another Asphalt season. Missed it last time. I'm not going to miss this one because, let's be real here, it wouldn't be really a season or a year for us if we don't do at least one Asphalt event together. And here it is, here and now. I'm very excited to see how these races come in out of the rest of the pack and to see who takes the crown.
Well, let's have a look. Let's look what we got today. It is obviously going to be the both Android and iOS. Let's check out the brackets. For the Android, of course, Jägermeister up against Fur My Friend, a repeat of the third place match back in the spring. And Sven up against RPM Onio down in the second bracket. Of course, they're the two semi-finals. We will go through to a best of 5 final, if I'm not mistaken. Fab up against RPM Kenshin. Apologies, I'm just going to carry playing on iOS. And Nilo up against Ronin. Now, as far as I'm told, Ronin is actually RPM Alex. So we were wondering, weren't we, Lethal? Where's Alex? Where's Alex? Well, now we know.
Yeah, because it made no sense. We know that iOS is a very strong in terms of like the players they have in that kind of side of things. But yeah, like Alex is probably one of the most consistent players in Asphalt. Yes, she hasn't won many titles, but the amount of top 2s, top 3s he's had, he is well overdue for a victory at some stage. And see Nido versus Alex, of course, that is Alex, like you rightly said. But what a way to kick things off for iOS.
Absolutely. You're looking fantastic. No doubt about it. If I could get my words out, it would be wonderful. We are going to be starting things off over on the Android. So we'll go straight into the semi-finals back-to-back for the Android. And we'll go into the iOS semi-finals and so on and so forth. We'll guide you through the day. If you've just joined us, welcome. I know some of you latecomers may have just about got here. I can tell you the semi-final tracks to start, which will be the first race, will be Jägermeister up against Fur My Friend. We'll be on New York, the city that never sleeps, of course. Osaka, which will be Naniwa Tor, and then over to Rome for the Eternal City. So that will be the first set of tracks. Anything we want to throw in there? Obviously, we know about Jägermeister. I got to speak to him last spring as well when he ended up in third place there, and he was talking about how busy he was, hadn't had as much time to maybe challenge the likes of Onio in there because of simply the fact he just didn't get enough time to practice. Practice makes perfect, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're right. With Asphalt, practice does make perfect, like you rightly said. They need to refine every single thing they need to do from time trials and, the qualification process, even to make it here is difficult enough. The numerous amount of players have been involved this time round is just nothing short of spectacular, and it's good to see that the Asphalt scene is still looking very fresh, very healthy at the moment. And like you rightly said, we've seen some of the old guards and some new blood here come in, like you saw Swen, a player who's come in, and Kim Chim as well. Oh, actually, I think I've said that wrong, but like we've seen a few names as well where, for example, on the Android side we've seen the same three faces, but on iOS we've seen a few changes, like Fra's not around. He was here last time, and I'm surprised he's not here this time because we've seen him back in 2019 for Gamescom and Milan Games Week, and it's weird that we haven't seen a little bit more of him. Some players may have drifted off a little bit where some of the new blood have actually come into the scene this time around.
Well, let's get the games underway, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to join us. It is going to be the ESL Mobile Open Asphalt 9 Legends. We're into the semi-finals straight away over on the Android. It is Furfur, my friend, up against Jägermeister on New York.
Like you rightly said, though, Jägermeister was the one who came out on top in that third place playoff last season. Let's see if he can hopefully continue to trend this time, and especially if he wants to try and make it into the final. But so far, so good for Furfur, my friend, just using that double nitro to make it round these corners. Of course, the single on double nitro is more, not for the speed or durability, but the fact that it's just much better handling overall. But this is literally so tight, neck and neck here, as Furfur, my friends, had a little bit of a scuffle with crashes already, and this is not what's to kick things off in this series.
Yeah, and people in chat just asking, isn't it single player? Well, yes, you can hold up in single player, yes, but multiplayer is where it's at, racing side by side. And yes, you can crash your opponent out. And that's kind of what happened there. Jägermeister just, using all the track. And if I'm not mistaken, this was the track we used for the finals, the 2020 finals. I'm pretty sure this is the exact same layout. I'm just looking at it. Obviously, there are multiple layouts of the track, but over into lap 2 we go. And absolutely, yes, it is. And Jägermeister, as you can see, but often with this, Lethal, is when you do get such a big lead, you're kind of not going to give it up. But Furfur's doing a good job of catching.
He really is. Any problem for him is the fact that when you lose that 2 or 3 seconds of time from one of these crashes, it's very tough to even... The only thing you can do really is maybe do a couple barrel rolls, which you saw just then Furfur, my friends, managed to do, but couldn't really get away with it. And it's the only way, just to add a little bit more nitro to your collection to maintain it in order to get a bit more perfect nitros, or maybe even shockwave, depending on the circumstances. It really is tough, and I've very rarely seen that happen. Like, maybe, okay, yeah, sure, fair enough, they'll catch up a little bit from the additional risks they need to take, but it's extremely rare to be able to catch up with your opponent, especially at the same skill tier.
Yeah, Solid makes a very good point. The car does look indeed awesome. And I have been told a number of times by, obviously, a lot of the drivers that the Bugatti, yes, it is a fantastic car, but it is tough on the corners, and we saw that a couple of times, obviously riding a little too hard. But as is pointed out, with multiplayer, unlike the time trials that they've been qualifying on throughout, reaching those top 10 times, you can't just keep on going because you're up against the head-to-head, and Jägermeister comes out on top in the first race out.
I was trying to think of the best way to explain it from a multiplayer perspective with Asphalt. I kind of feel like if your opponent has the lead, it doesn't matter how mechanically gifted you can be in order to try and overtake them. There's something which just pushes you back. It's so difficult to try and comprehend the amount of risks you need to take to even try. Like, even back in the Asphalt 5 or 6 days, I thought it was really tough, like very difficult in order to try and overtake your opponent.
You're rolling back the years there, mate.
I know. But nowadays, it's a lot easier. It's a lot better this time round. Yeah, that's like, what, 11 years ago now. But yeah, but compared to nowadays, it is a little bit easier. But again, those risks or there's elements of gameplay you need to create in order to be able to overtake your opponent. It's so tough. But at the same time, if you are in front but only a few microseconds, you've got to be careful in case your opponent does land on you, depending on how much boost you have to try and get away after the landing. But we'll see what happens now, as both of them already drifting across on the second turn, and you can see the shock wave. But it looks like Jägermeister has a slight lead, but both of them just neck and neck, as both of them have gone both sides rather than just one or the other. And already you can see Furfur, my friends, is wall riding just a tad to maintain that speed and also grab some of that nitro.
Yeah, we certainly had a very good start. As you can see, lost pace in the end there, so started off very well. We are on Osaka, by the way, the Naniwa Tower tour. This is the race we actually used in the spring as well, so I recommend this one, no doubt about it. But for my friend, just a little behind at the moment in a similar situation. Nothing really to fault, though, between the two outside of just being a fraction behind, and that could be a simple mistake, would certainly cost him here. But at the moment, Jägermeister holding it. That's just a spin too many, I think, for Furfur there. That may lose him a little bit of time. It will get him the boost, but as you can see, Jägermeister able to hold the boost a lot longer. Way more boosted up as well going through this section.
Yeah, this is the issue I was talking about before. And of course, these 360s, you can do as many as you like in the air because you won't lose any speed. But if you do it on the ground, it's going to not be as cost effective as you would like to have it, unless, you know, you have to take some huge risks there, which is why, you know, some people may use the break nitro trick as well if they're wall riding or in a straight line, because really it's the only time you can do it. But Furfur, my friends, is trying to do everything he can to try and catch up. But Jägermeister this season compared to last season, just literally night and day different, looking very good, very consistent, and yeah, just absolutely running away with it. Look how far ahead he is so far, D-Man.
Yeah, this is clean driving right now, and Jäger's just hovering, doesn't really need to lay it, and I think Furfur's pretty much given up the ghost now. You can see he's not even bothering to boost it, realizes his goose is indeed cocked, and it's looking fantastic for Jägermeister to carry on through. So a quick 2-0 there over Furfur, my friends. A repeat result, as I say, of the third place playoffs last time out in the Spring Open finals as well.
I feel like this time around Jägermeister seems a lot more refined, maybe a little bit more practice involved, and just the way he was taking the turnings, the corners, and the nitro management he was having as well, just making sure to infuse as much of the shockwave as possible. And he was very, very patient with the double nitro as well. Like I said before, the single double nitro is more about the handling, but will of course keep up with a little bit of speed. But I feel sorry for Furfur, my friends. I don't like to include it in their gameplay, but I think it's his mental fortitude in this series. Ever since he crashed almost halfway through that first race. It was a bit of a shame because it kind of ruined his confidence a little bit. And at the same time, he had a very healthy lead and he just threw it all away. And it's the same for the second race. It kind of followed on in terms of momentum. Jägermeister probably thinking, well, this is his lucky break. He can probably make something of this. And Furfur, my friends, of course, not a walkover at all. But I do respect the risky barrel rolls he tried to take in order to gain additional nitro to try and catch up to him. But you saw in the first race, he tried to do it as well. But there's a few times he had a few mishaps, but it's just one of those things. It happens in Asphalt.
So let's just remind you guys, let's have a look at the bracket for the Android so far. So it does mean Furfur, my friends, he'll be going down to the third place match. Jägermeister into the finals. So next up will be Sven, or Swen, whichever you prefer, versus RPM Onio. Now, track-wise, we're going to be going on to Caribbean Island, which will be the beach landing, Cairo Ancient Wonders, and Midwest, which will be Canyon Launch. So actually very similar maps to last time out in the spring, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, can't complain really about that. It just means that these players are very familiar with these tracks, but it also means that not as much trial and error is required from a larger scale, but really have to refine the very, very minor but smaller details. We've seen a lot in the qualifiers where a few of them made like a couple of tenths of a second difference, but when someone makes half a second to a second, that's like mammoth in comparison, and you always want to try and figure out exactly what happened. But at the same time, I want to see if a lot of these players have gone back to these tracks and be able to make even more refined moments in terms of like parts of the track to either speed things up even faster, because I'm sure they don't want to reveal everything out the bag leading up to these finals.
Absolutely. And if I'm not mistaken, Caribbean's a pretty open track. Let's get it on your screens. It's ready to go. So we're going into the second semi-finals here. This is Sven up against RPM Onio. Onio, the finalist in the spring, actually lost out to Adidas, who I do see in the chat. So hello, buddy. Where were you this season? What happened? Where were you? Why were we not involved in the top four shootout? But yeah, he was the winner in the spring. So congrats to him. But now we are here in the next season. And at the moment, Onio just holding the lead. As I say, the open track overall, and pretty looking similar for them, the two at the moment.
Yeah, just keep an eye on it at the moment. Both made some good landings. You can see that Onio up by half a second. Now Onio just continuing to do what he does best with these shockwaves. Perfect timing with the jumps as well, which means he can shockwave again if he wants to. Using that double nitro just to get a little bit more momentum there, but at the same time just using that break nitro and also to continue with the shockwave straight afterwards. The mechanics that Onio is abusing right now is just, again, looking very, very solid. But Sven's noticed that he's dwindled behind a little bit more by a couple more tenths of a second, now taking a different route. A slightly riskier route. He's missed some of those nitros, which means that it's going to be a little bit harder for him to find a straighter corner to use that shockwave. We'll have to waste a little bit nitro as well, but still looking solid from Onio here.
Yeah, and I understand, obviously, the car might be a little bit tricky to handle sometimes in the corners, and that obviously separates the men from the boys. Simple as that. Yes, it's a very fast car, but also very tricky to handle, and these guys sometimes make it look very easy. Onio is absolutely blasting now. Oh, no, Sven's missed the ramp. That's going to cost him.
It really is, yeah. It's just, for Sven, it's like very, very minor areas have just been, you know, it's not been cost efficient in terms of timing. He's had to take a few more risks, but he needs to take even more. He needs to do a little more barrel rolls, try and take it a little bit more in terms of what he wants to do in order to pursue some of these laps, because it's not like any other race where there's like 30, 40 laps. He still needs to, you know, there's only 3 laps and you have to take some huge risks with some huge rewards here. But a lot of these jumps basically are based on a barrel roll anyway, so there's only so much he can do. Onio knows that, which means all Onio needs to do is just be consistent, play it safe, just be a little bit cautious on what could happen later on. But Onio is still playing out of his skull and looking very good once again.
It's some smooth driving. Honestly, Sven did pretty well to catch up there, but it will be Onio taking the first round overall. And honestly, kind of led from the start on that one. Wasn't really under pressure too much there. It does mean we're going to be moving over to Cairo next, which will be the Ancient Wonders track.
Yeah, I think what was Sven, like about 3 seconds behind. That was a huge margin considering he didn't really create any major faults in his gameplay. Just Onio just, rather than playing it safe, just making sure he just extends his lead. And the good thing is that if it does come to it where he does crash by accident, he should be slightly ahead. But in terms of acceleration, when he actually lands once, or sorry, respawns once again, then yeah, it might cause a few issues. But so far for Sven, needs to try and step up his game just a tad here, because it looks like that Onio could come out with a 2-0 victory here, depending on what changes that Sven has to make. But hopefully for his sake, that wasn't his best course overall, as we're going straight into the second race of the series to find if Onio can finish this up or Sven can show some life here.
Tight start, no doubt about it. Choosing different routes as well, which is very interesting. So Onio going onto the right-hand side will come out behind Sven. Let's see if he's got the boost to try and keep with him, because Sven's got himself the lead here. Goes for the audacious 360. Gets away with it. Does manage to ride the barrier, and that's given Onio a chance to try and sneak underneath. It is very tight.
Oh,
One goes left.
no!
Oh, Sven wipes out, and that surely will be giving it to Onio.
He was, it was looking so good. I was like, okay, this is looking pretty good. So, oh no, Onio's done the exact same thing. I was just going to talk about, but Sven may have dug his own grave there, but Onio's just made things even worse. And look at this already, D-Man. Sven is directly behind him, and now he's realised he's been given a lifeline and can make something of this depending on his nitro management.
Oh, into the second lap, neck and neck. Big oof for both of them in the first lap. And that means, obviously, we're both wiping out. That's going to be in the back of their minds. This time, Onio chooses the safer left side and does manage to go the same route. So all he's got to do is keep ahead of Sven, and that's exactly what he's doing at the moment. Both, they're looking at pretty even boost. Sven a little down in it, goes for the spin as well to try and make sure he can get enough to keep up with him. Onio just holding himself the lead. Now we're coming up to the split. Which way will they go? It is going to be both on the right-hand side. I've got to be honest, I felt Sven maybe wanted to risk it to go and try and gain some ground there, but it doesn't look like it's happening, and Onio is holding steady.
Yeah, Onio's definitely taken a lot lesser risk in comparison to where Sven before. It was just every time he goes under that bridge, does the couple 360s every time to get a little bit more nitro than Onio. But Onio's nitro management, once again, how he uses it, when he uses it, and before he goes up these jumps, just looking spectacular. But it's going to be Onio. She takes it in the end, and yeah, both of them with the crashes, and you saw that Sven was thinking, oh, well, you know, a bit of a chance here. But then sadly for him, he actually crashed himself, and then that's literally about it. But it's an RPM member. It's bound to happen. You're not going to get an easy ride.
Yeah, absolutely. But a close one, no doubt about it. Coming out, unfortunately, worse off in that one. So 2-0 for Onyo. He will progress into the finals. Let's check him out in the brackets there. He's going to be playing off against Jägermeister, of course, in the finals. And for Sven, of course, we know he's going down now into the third place matchup against Fur, my friend. So tough race, no doubt about it. A much closer one than the first one on Caribbean, though.
It certainly was indeed. You'd assume that Onyo would be one of the favourites coming into the Android side in terms of devices, but we'll see if now Jägermeister, who placed third last time round, can take down Onyo. And after what Jägermeister probably saw, he's probably thinking to himself, okay, you know, he's made a bit of a blunder here and there, and there is cracks in the armour for Onyo, which give maybe Jägermeister a little bit of not just breathing room, but a little bit more confidence when he's against him in that final. But sadly for Furfur, my friends, he is back as history has repeated itself in that third place playoff, but hopefully he'll get the third place instead of fourth like he did against Jägermeister last time round.
So those finals will be coming up in a little bit. Yeah, just some highlights of that. The Caribbean was very much one-sided on you, but this much closer race here, and you just see Sven wiping out now. I feel like he was like, I want to go right, maybe, and I think he got slightly nudged by Onyo, if I'm not mistaken there. So maybe an unforced error, and then Onyo wipes out in the tunnel. Oh, it took the second lap very, very close, but Onyo will progress. So we're going to move on. We're not moving on to the finals, not yet. Calm yourself, boys, and chat. We're going to go over to the iOS. We've got to give them some love now. Over to the iOS. So first off will be Fab versus RPM Kenshim, and then we'll be rolling on to Nilo versus Ronin, aka RPM Alex. So that'll be the next matches. In terms of tracks, I think we're going with the same ones. Yes, we are. We're going with the same ones for the semi-finals. So just to remind you, we'll be going over to the first set of maps, which obviously we saw Jägermeister, Furfur, my friend, playing on, which was New York, the City Never Sleeps track layout, and then over to Osaka and Naniwa Tour. And if we need it, we will go to Rome, the Eternal City.
Yeah, and you see the names, we recognise them very well. Over the last few years, we've been casting Asphalt. Alex, one of the most consistent players out there. I've not seen him actually get a tournament victory. He might have done whilst, we don't know about.
Always the bride, wasn't he? Yeah. Always the perennial not going to quite get it.
He certainly was. Like, for example, was it Gamescom? He lost to Driver 8714. I still remember his name. He's still Milan Games Week, where he actually lost to Future Flash. And there have been other occasions as well, and it's just not been his day. But the worst bit is, he is definitely one of the best players out there. Just this placement has been his nemesis. Really struggles to get that first place. To try and bag that W in any way. But let's see if he's got it this time round. Hopefully he does. I hope that we're not his kryptonite in some way from stopping him. But you see there, he's got a very difficult challenge ahead of him. Against Nilo as well. Again, a very strong force to be reckoned with.
All right, let's get going, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get the first track underway. Will be New York, the city that never sleeps. It is going to be Fab up against RPM Kenshim. Let's see how this plays out.
Certainly will do indeed, as both players not boosting at the start. Jed is taking it very cautiously with the 360s going up into the left-hand side. But already you saw their Fab using that double nitro. But Kenshim has actually decided to... he's already crashed him out, and you saw their Fab use the double nitro. But Kenshim actually made sure to be a little bit more patient, go for a shockwave and dive straight past him, but also knocking him at the same time. This is a perfect lead here for Kenshim.
Oh, that's... Yeah, I tell you what, you know, some of these drivers, they don't play a lot of multiplayer, some of them do.
Oh, no.
But Kenshim absolutely planned for that as he goes through Grand Central. Absolutely planned. Fab with the second wipeout as well. That kind of puts the nail in the coffin. Kenshim can afford to have a couple of wipeouts at this rate, as Fab is having a nightmare.
He really is, yeah. It's more than a nightmare. He's been waking up in a cold sweat in a minute, hoping it all to be over, and finds out it's actually going to be... actually real. But the third crash, yeah, Fab had to do some more barrel rolls in order to try and make a go of this race in any way. But it's just not happening. You can see there, just one crash after the other. And I mentioned it before with his barrel rolls, or just trying to refine some of his mistakes he's making, but it's just way too much now. At this point, he must be at least 10 seconds behind. There's nothing he can do. The only thing he can do now is just have a mental reset and just crack on, pretend this race ever happened. And I'm sure he'll be thinking a lot about that as we go into that next race.
Gotta love the consistency for Kenshim as well, because he'll have no clue that obviously Fab is so far behind. So he's just obviously racing his heart out as fast as he can and doing a fantastic job of it as he approaches the line. So yeah, absolutely nailing it this time around is RPM Kenshim. Very well driven overall. Ride it round over to the left-hand side and coming up in towards the line. So superb drive overall. And for poor old Fab, he's just is a mental reset. You just got to think, okay, yeah, that didn't play out as I planned it. So going into obviously a Saka, they need to be thinking, right, okay, just get my brain back into gear, because that's definitely a kicker to get wiped out at the start and then wipe yourself out and then just multiple crashes. I think after that he's already checked out.
Yeah, I think it would happen with anyone who competes in Asphalt. They just know that one crash, it's pretty much very unlikely that you're gonna be able to take it. And if it's 2 crashes, that's it. Like, you know, you're pretty much done and dusted. Just get ready for the next race and get your preparation sorted, knowing that, you know, whether it happened is fine. And just play the race out just to keep yourself warm, because of course a tournament setting is completely different to, you know, a scrim or, you know, being at a LAN environment for practicing, or, you know, even time trials itself. So it's good to make sure just to keep that mental fortitude ready, like you already said, a mental reset. And I hope he has done for this race, because this is going to be his last chance.
Absolutely. Let's get into the next race. It is the Naniwar Towers, where we sort the men from the boys, maybe. Oh, that's a dirty start from Fab. Oh, that is a bit of revenge.
Oh, that was dirty. He's a dirty player indeed. But then again, Kenshim had a little bit more of a strategical value at the start of the last race. He purposely saved the shockwave and was more patient, so he can crash him out and dive straight past him. So both of them can be a little bit dirty in terms of the tricks of the trade we like to plan out earlier on. But Fab just wanted to get out of the way as soon as possible, get that 1 or 2 second lead. But Kenshim is hot on his tail with that double nitro, and now just being a little bit more cautious, getting more barrel rolls than actually Fab does, which means that Kenshim could easily catch him up here.
Yeah, he is absolutely blasting right now. Catches that boost as well, which Fab missed. And that's going to give him a way bit more now as he just lines up. Just pick his moment as well, because we saw, you know, they've kind of wiped each other out almost. You can't really count it as a wipe up for Kenshim, but it did kind of put him in the car. And he goes for it, but it backfires. And in the 360. Oh, no, Fab's got as well.
What is going on? The worst bit was the first crash by Kenshim. Okay, he tried to provoke it, but the problem was Fab was inches above him, which means he's the one who's going to end up crashing, having to sacrifice the 2 or 3 seconds, and Fab just crashed anyway, so it didn't really matter. Both of them neck and neck towards this final straight at some stage, but I do love the tricks that Kenja's making, shockwave him, and then use the great nitro trick to go around some of these corners to use that double nitro for better handling. And again, this is so close.
Oh, but Fab's lost out a little bit here, and if Kenshim takes it, he will go through to the finals. Just a little bit more to go here. Fab has got his work cut out as Kenshim has got himself the lead. So close for so long, but it looks like Kenshim may well have this one in the bag now. Hit a few more boosts more than Fab did. Just a little rough for Fab, sort of getting lost in the straight dueling that was going on for a large portion of it, but it does seem that Kenshim now has his eye on the prize as he continues over the jumps, and he's looking golden. Fab wipes out. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. Kenshim will go to the final.
Both of them had, you know, similar strats in terms of like what they want to do at the start of the race. Obviously, they're both dirty players, which is this is perfectly fine, because it means that even though it's a lot more risk required, in terms of being able to give it your lead or, you know, some other circumstances. But, you know, both of them have done it, so both can't really blame each other. They both have the same tactics in terms of what they want to do at the very beginning. But, yeah, I must say, fair play to Kenshim for trying to crash him out, like, towards the end of that second lap. But, again, if you're just even millimeters, like inches underneath, you're going to be the one who has to sacrifice that amount of time and be able to, sadly say, release crash out. But you saw that Kenshim right at the very beginning of that second race was pushed apart by Fab. Kenshim, you saw they were talking about before, where he was the one who had to go on the respawn because he was directly underneath, and then Fab just crashed anyway. So there was a lot more errors coming up from Fab where Kenshim just heavily took advantage of.
Yeah, I got to feel for Fab. You know, after after wiping him out in that 360, he's going to be like, yeah, God, oh no! Just like absolutely livid and probably mentally checked out that point. You know, the red mist can descend and you just get angry with yourself and then mistakes happen and it sort of all just continues from there on out. Oh, disaster. Let's have a look at the iOS brackets just to refresh your memories. So Kenshim for RPM will go through into the finals. It means Fab's going to be in that third place matchup. A disaster. Going over to the next semi-finals, we're going to have Nilo up against Ronin, aka RPM Alex. An absolute fantastic two former teammates up against one another.
It should be a great way to send the next person into the finals. This could potentially be a final in itself, but these two are also going to be very worried, not just for this race overall, but the fact that Kenshim is the kind of guy who will just take any risks, like no matter if he's in the lead or up in the series. I'm hoping for Kenshim's sake, it was just due to the fact that he was up in the series, so he can take more risk, and it's a very delicate situation because it means you've got to play even safer, and sometimes you have to give up a little bit more of that speed and momentum going somewhere around those corners, and you have to be very careful, very cautious on what your plan of action is going to be. It's very tough because I would like to talk about more the mechanics and fundamentals in these races, but because of what we've seen so far, it's just been ridiculous. The amount of crashes, it has been brutal. It's been absolute carnage, but you know what? I absolutely love it.
Love it indeed. Let's get to the Caribbean islands. It's going to be the beach landing, which we've already seen once today. Now we're on the iOS to see how these two former teammates can muscle each other out.
We've spoken about Alex quite a lot here. And now we have to give Nilo some love because, of course, another fantastic player in itself. And you saw Alex there just using that shockwave and also the 360s to maintain the speed, but also gain some additional nitro. But Nilo's going to be one who's slightly ahead. Nice stuff from Alex there just to make sure to get a barrel roll even before that jump. He's able to catch up from that as well. Save him for that shockwave, but he can't use it yet until he goes over that jump, which he has done. Uses the brake trick as well just to continue using that shockwave because, of course, there's no point around some of these very crucial corners. But look at the consistency from Alex, just shockwaving for the last 5 to 10 seconds, considering the durability of the shockwave. But it's looking very, very solid, and Nilo has some catching up to do.
Does have a bit of work to do here. Absolutely looking great for Ronin at the moment, as aka Alex, as Nilo is slowly gaining. You can see him edging closer and closer, and this is all about the finesse, effectively. A tricky car to handle in the corners, and both of these drivers doing a fantastic job as we edge in towards the second lap, and it is still Ronin holding the lead over Nilo.
Yeah, Nilo just been a little bit more cautious, just using that single nitro for the last 5-10 seconds until he goes up to the shockwave. It takes barely any nitro, but just get a little bit of speed. Momentum's good, but you saw there as well. Alex crashed only slightly, but it doesn't matter. Still got the shockwave intact, but it's Nilo's the one with the amount of nitro he has and good double nitro usage, now using the shockwave very shortly, but Nilo's actually crashed a little bit, which gives Alex the lead.
But he had the boost, and honestly, a very risque 360 on the jump. Absolutely ballsy stuff from Nilo to get away with this, but Ronin once again retaking that lead. These drivers, there's not a lot separating them, that's for sure. Clean racing as well between the two. I've got to point that out, as they both are hitting about every jump they can, catching the walls as well, just running it perfectly. That's again smooth. Nilo gained a lot of time here last time out, and he's doing just that. Goes on the inside line, and a very different run. Ronin's running a little wide, it looks to me. I think Nilo may well just pass him, and he does. Just gets ahead as we hit the line, and Nilo will take it over Ronin in a very, very tight race.
I love that as well. You saw there that Nilo was very patient once again, saving that shockwave for the next jump. And of course, once he goes over, I've noticed that Nilo landed a lot cleaner in comparison to what you see from Alex in doing that. And I think Nilo realized that on one of the first laps, where he saw that he was catching up ever so slightly on that bend every time. Noticed the pattern and thought, well, this is his last chance. He needs to go over that jump and, of course, use the shockwaves to get more duration. And he saw they just absolutely wiped the floor straight afterwards. But there was a few bumps along the way, a few minor mistakes and a few minor crashes. But then again, that was more due to the fact they're trying to bring everything out the fire, really. A lot of these advanced trickeries just to make sure they can not only hold that lead and maintain it, but also just bring a lot more of that X factor really to try and extend that lead even further. But nice to see though, and now we're going to sign out again as Nilo does have that early lead, but Ronan is actually going to be one using that double nitro to get that lead. But it said Nilo's been a little bit more patient using that shockwave and managed to use it perfectly, and Ronan taking a slightly different route in comparison.
Just slightly different. It does give Nilo that little advantage here. We are on Kairos. It is the Ancient Wonders layout as well, as both go down under the bridge and looking pretty good so far. Ronan holding a bit more of that boost, and a little bit of a wall tap there as well from Nilo, which is why they're both so close to one another at the moment. Both keeping the same route as well, and Nilo, I feel like he's just gone a little bit wide there. Ronan gains a little bit more ground. You can see he keeps edging closer, and he tried, I feel, to wipe him out there. That looked like a move that almost paid off, but Nilo's boost absolutely gun clear.
He was very tempted. The problem for Alex now is the fact that he has to use perfect nitro now and again around some of his corners, as you can see. But Nino's fine. Like, around some of his corners, he can just use that double nitro to not worry about the consistency of using that break nitro trick to go around some of his corners, and he's been perfectly fine so far. But this is the problem, is Ronnie needs to use that perfect nitro a little bit more rather than the double nitro, which means it's going to have to be as efficient as possible. But he is doing a good job. It's caught up by a few tenths of a second. My word, it's going to be very close to the wire, right to the very end. Here's Alex doing everything he can in case he loses this. This could be his final race of his tournament.
I tell you what, Nilo, he hits those 360s, he gets that little bit of extra boost in some risque areas that he gets away with. It is ballsy play, but it is paying off for him at the moment. And he is blasting ahead of Ronan now, and Alex is going to lose out here. It will be Nilo progressing through to the finals, taking down one of his former teammates from many years ago. Not quite as old as Lethal's gaming time, but it's still been around for a long time as Alex.
Oh, he certainly has. You saw it was just a matter of Alex had to, pull out some more tricks there. He had to use that break nitro trick on a few occasions rather than none, just due to the fact that Nino can rely on the double nitro, but he had to rely on the perfect nitro and have to break around some of those corners, which can be very tedious at times and can throw you off ever so slightly, depending on how efficient you are on some of these tracks and how refined your plan of action is as well. But Alex still played really well. Didn't really see any major faults from him. A couple of bumps along the road on the first race, but the second one was a lot cleaner. But again, Nilo knew that at some stage that Alex would have to take some huge risk in order for him to catch up, for Alex to catch up to him there.
Yeah, I think he went for almost a 720 off the ramp. That's up, man. That is ball. But it paid off for Nilo. That gave him that little bit of extra boost, and that one worked out. And then over to Cairo. It was pretty much Nilo leading the way all the time. We did see Ronan gaining the ground a couple of times throughout there, but it will be Nilo that will progress through. So some superb racing from two former teammates there. Let's have a look at the brackets just to remind you exactly where we stand now. It does mean that, of course, Nilo will be now going through to the finals to face off against another member of RPM, Kenshim, in the finals. And, of course, the third place matches will be Fab versus Ronan on the iOS. And don't forget, we also had the Android to come. Quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be kicking off with the third place matches. Don't go anywhere.
ESL Mobile Open is brought to you by DHL and Pay Safeguard.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back, and it is time for the third place playoffs. Before we hit the finals, let's have a quick look at the brackets, Lethal, to just see exactly where we stand after all those semi-finals have played out. Starting out, of course, over on the Android. It will be Furfur, my friend, up against Sven, obviously with Jägermeister and Onio now in the finals. Those finals will be a best of 5, just to point that out. And, of course, we're into a best of 3 for the third place playoffs overall. So going to be a tough one here, I feel, Lethal, with the track switching up as well. It's going to be Shanghai, Nanjing, Stroll, then the Himalayas, which would be the mountain, and San Francisco, the city by the bay. They're going to be the 3 tracks, if we need, of course, 3 tracks, that is.
I still can't believe some of the races we've witnessed so far. It's been a blessing for us, really, just witnessing all this chaos, but it's not something you'd normally see. I kind of feel like some of these players who are maybe, not that it's massively confident in themselves, but maybe if they know that they're playing maybe a little bit better than them from what they've seen from time trials or the times they've had in the past in some of these tracks, they're more than welcome to take a few more risks, which really puts you, if you feel like the better player in that matchup, on edge. And we've seen a lot of elements of that across the board, like especially in that matchup earlier on, I can't remember, it's the 3rd or 4th race. It was just ridiculous, both of them with a lot of dirty tricks, but that's Asphalt for you, like in a nutshell with multiplayer. There are some races where they will play it very clean because they rely on their fundamentals and mechanics. Others will rely on that, but would rather have more of an edge and more of a safer route for them by doing a little bit of damage at the start.
Yeah, you're referring to Kenjim and Fab that battled earlier on the iOS. Let's get the game underway, though. This is the 3rd place match for Android. It is ready to go. Furfur, my friend, up against Sven. We'll see how this one plays out. It is Sven getting himself an early start because Furfur had to, of course, move across for the jump.
That's right, Furfur, my friend. Sadly for him, history has repeated itself once again, but not entirely. He might be able to get 3rd instead of 4th this time round, but he's the one falling ever so slightly behind, but doesn't need to take any huge risks as of yet. He did have better nitro usage. He still was able to catch up, but realizes that now, even though his opponent using that shockwave, he's able to catch up because saw Sven losing a little bit of speed as he barged on that right-hand side. But Furfur, my friends, again, just using that shockwave, using the brake as well in order to use that shockwave, and a lot more efficient places, especially this jump, and it could be just a matter of time until Furfur, my friends, does take over.
Yeah, this is pretty tight between the two there. Furfur just getting that little extra boost. You can see just a wee bit more than Sven at the moment. We'll see whether he manages to pay off for him. He's just trying to bide his time and really look for the moment. At the moment, he's pretty much neck and neck. Can he slam him? It gets past him. I think he was trying to go for a cheeky slam there. Wasn't quite enough, but either way, he does manage to get past Sven.
Yeah, Furfur, my friends, has literally had better nitro management, and you can see that Sven is getting a little bit, flustered because he can hear that he's directly behind him. He's just knows that he needs to just keep himself sane for the remainder of this race because it's very easy to get baited to use some of that nitro early on when you do not need to. It's all about that mental fortitude and that restraint there and discipline. But Furfur, my friends, I said it before, the way he's playing in this race, it looked like it was just a matter of time with Sven delaying the inevitable. But we have seen a lot of signs of life from Sven in this last series in the semi-final. But after missing that barrel roll from Sven, it looks like that he's going to fall even further behind, not gaining that additional nitro. And now Furfur, my friends, should be able to take this race.
Yeah, this is looking pretty good for him here, and that's going to be Furfur going over the line. So fantastic stuff for him. Just to answer your question in chat, Elite Joe is over in the Americas, I believe. So this is the European side of things, which is where we're getting the drivers here. So I would assume Elite Joe would have qualified. The 2020 winner certainly did very well over there. But to keep the game relevant, that was Furfur, my friend, pretty much taking it there. Sven led for the first lap for the majority of it, but then just one small error cost him.
A lot of perfect nitro and shockwave brake tricks that you saw from Furfur, just making sure that to just keep his opponent off guard and knowing that at some stage he will slip up in some way. But this is the problem, you see. Depending on what the track it is, you can just double nitro most of the spots and then just rely on the fact that you've got the lead and you have to worry too much about what you need to do in order to try and extend it. But you saw there Furfur did everything he could. He did it all perfectly, didn't make really any mistakes at all, only a very, very few minor ones, but it didn't really conclude to any kind of catastrophic time loss towards the end there. So very good stuff there from Furfur, but Swen, though, he knows how consistent he's been so far and needs to take a few loads of caution, but he should still be able to make it on the track with Fur managing to use that shockwave at the beginning, and now he's got a nice little early lead.
Yeah, it's so risky. You want to take as little a jump as possible, and generally you want to bend it in, but I tell you what, Furfur, I think, was stretching the limits of that one there as he got collected a little bit by Swen on the way. Of course, Swen wasn't able to get the bend on there, so Furfur absolutely riding high right now. This is Mountain Poles, in case you missed it, where we are. One of the tracks we had throughout the qualifiers as well. We saw this a couple of times, certainly through spring as well, but a fantastic circuit for these guys, very technical at times.
And then what Swen did as well 2 jumps ago, using the double nitro up the jump, and then just before he lands, he brakes in order to get that extra nitro before he lands and then use that shockwave. But now, though, you can see that, yeah, he's caught out massively, and Furfur is probably going to be a little bit skeptical of what he needs to do, because now he's going on to the next lap. He's still got to go around the whole track again, and he's going to be worried as to whether he can keep up with his consistency. But I love that from Furfur, just making sure to clip off the side of that ramp to get that barrel roll, get extra nitro, still using the double nitro for the better handling across these corners. But Swen's doing equally as a good job, but it's just a matter of if he can catch up, as he's had some better nitro management towards the halfway point in this race.
Yeah, Swen realizing he needs to do what he can, starting to go for the spins a little bit to try and just get as much boost as he can, trying to run it down. But the problem is, you know, you've got to use it in the exact right position. Once again, trying to get that boost, knows he's going to get more of it. Goes again for another boost, tries to come very close and just edges in front of Furfur. That was just about all he could do, though, to try and stay ahead. Is it enough, though? Because he didn't get the ride off the wall, which is what Furfur got. That's going to bring him closer as he can approach the line here. Sven holding the point, holding what he can, boosting where he can. Furfur has all the boost, but it's going to be too late. Sven will get himself a race. We're tied up at last, Lethal, and what a move from Sven.
Yeah, I was worried going to this next race. I thought, okay, I kind of feel like mechanically Furfur looks a lot better, but Swen did basically the polar opposite and made sure that he was the one, not only was just more consistent, but just better nitro management once again. I'm not sure what happened with Furfur, because what cost him was he missed that second to last jump, or missed that last jump. I don't know if maybe he did that on purpose, assuming that he didn't want to take any more risks, and maybe he's got a long enough lead, but I'm certain that he must have heard him, Sven behind him, and of course missing that last jump has actually cost him that race. So we're now all tied up here, and Sven's going to be, you know, pretty good right now. A lot more confidence, a lot more momentum in his favour, and Furfur needs to try and stop that as early as possible in this last race.
So on to San Francisco we go. It is the city by the bay, the track layout, and Swen now got to be feeling pretty good after that one. Goes for a very early 360 and almost puts Furfur in the barrier. Doesn't work out though, as Furfur holds the lead.
Yeah, as I said before, with the 360s mid-air, you don't really lose any speed. It's only when you 360 on the ground, and Furfur took that risk early on, and it's actually paid off massively as he's double nitro going around the corner, is braked, and now he's actually get that shockwave going up this next jump, and Furfur doing a great job increasing his lead, consistently using that double nitro to get around some of these corners. Has the shockwave again for this next jump, barrel rolls over, and look at that, Swen crashes on out, and surely it could be done here already.
Yeah, that looked like it was coming from a long way back as well. You could see he was trying to go for the risks. Ordinarily, actually, we see people tend to wipe out on the bridge there. That's where we generally see the wipeouts. Now, we do have a lap to go, so it's not all over yet, but Sven wiping out is definitely going to cost him here, and he's got to hope that Furfur makes a mistake.
Yeah, Swen needs to really use a 360 up this jump. He actually doesn't. Decides to go in a straight path and just use that shockwave a little bit, which is understandable to a certain extent. I thought he might have broken just beforehand and then doing the 360, but he does not. Maybe because he had too much nitro in his capacity already, so it's just not really too much, not really any point in using that 360. But again, look at it, Swen using that barrel roll off the last ramp just to get it a little bit more, to get some extra nitro, which will help him, but I don't think it's going to help him enough here, because it's not one of the longest tracks in the world, coming here. But look at Furfur though, still taking a few risks to keep his lead, and again, not going over any of his jumps, just using constant 360s now, shockwaving, and he realizes now that he's at least 3 seconds ahead, still maintaining that lead, and he's looking very good to get this victory, D-Man.
Yeah, and just sitting on that boost and Night sure he finishes it. There we go. It is Furfur, my friend, in the end, wrapping it up. That was all. Well, really, in fairness down to Swen and that wipeout, it did look like as they were going through sort of that long beach section, he was kind of semi-losing control, and you saw him going up left. You kind of saw it coming in slow motion. He was like, oh no, I can see what's going to happen. And Swen, after a great comeback in fairness on the second track, does unfortunately lose out. So it will be Furfur, my friend, winning out in the third place matchup there. That is, of course, the over on the Android bracket. So congrats to him. Let's have a look at that bracket as well in a moment. We've got the highlights from this. And this is across all the tracks, of course. Furfur started off strong, though. This was a cut for him on it was Shanghai, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yeah. And for Swen as well, commiserations to him. He kind of felt himself a little bit more towards the later stages of this series. It's just a shame that the worst way to get knocked out is due to an unforced error from Sven, and he knows that as well. And he probably feels a little bit more frustrated because he had such a great second race, but it's all about that level of consistency here, D-Man, and Furfur really showed it in that last race. But to be fair, it was Sven at the end of the day who done himself in, not Furfur. But I must say, the risk that Furfur took, and I'm surprised Sven didn't do it either, like at the very beginning, just getting that 360 off at technically the first jump there on the course, and Sven just watched him go past in a straight line. So a little bit surprised, but again, it doesn't matter, the mistakes are made, or maybe just in terms of knowledge of that track. But rightly so, no, Furfur does come out on top, so at least he improves his position by 1 compared to last season.
Absolutely, yeah. I was just about to say that. Obviously lost out to Jägermeister in the third place last time. Gets himself that third, so an improvement nonetheless. Up against, of course, a very tough opponent. So Sven, I see you in chat. Unlucky, buddy. It was just a simple case. It was a very entertaining second race. Love it, love it. Of course, the finals, that will be coming up in a short while. We're going to move over to the iOS, though, to have a look at the third place playoff for that one, of course. That is Fab up against Ronan. Fab, a feisty driver, no doubt about it, against Kenshim earlier on. Ronan, aka RPM Alex, is going to be a tough opponent for him.
Certainly will be. I'll be honest, in the second semi-final, I was kind of assuming that whoever wins that race, of that series rather, they're going to be favourites to win the entire competition. But Kenshim, I've not really know too much about him. I've not seen him in previous competitions, both offline and online. So I'm happy to see exactly how he does against Nino, because we saw Kenshim can be a little bit of a dirty player sometimes. People may call it strategical, which it is, don't get me wrong, because you want to try and throw your opponent off as much as possible, just to people off just a little bit at the very beginning. We've seen it on time and time again on numerous occasions, especially in his series against Fab. So we know what kind of player he is. So Nilo needs to make some decisions now. Does he want to play the same way at the very beginning? Does he want to be a little bit more patient with his Nitro at the start in case Kenshim does have any shenanigans? Or does he have an element of caution in case Kenshim does try and bring out some unforced errors which he may force upon in terms of those mistakes for Nino? So there's a lot of things to discuss here, and it's very difficult when you know that your opponent plays like that, even if he's behind. So you're kind of thinking, how you want to approach this, because it's not like a time trial where you're going to get stopped in any way, shape or form.
Yeah, you've got to watch out for that side swipe he did on Kenshim in the race earlier on. Just to remind you on the tracks, we're going on the same tracks that we just saw on Android there. So we're starting off on Shanghai. It is the Nanjing Stroll. Let's get straight to it. Fab on your left, Ronan on your right, and immediate contact.
Oh, dearie me, already. And I'm not really too surprised here, because Fab is very similar to Kenshim in terms of his, what kind of plays he wants to make early on, because having a lead in Asphalt is literally, it's hard to describe, but at the same time, it's very difficult to retain it because the amount of risks involved. And this is the issue here. Like, not only your opponent has to play cautiously, but very cautious in terms of what he wants to do going to the later stages of some of these races. But Alex looking very good, using that shockwave, just breaking just a tad in order to use a shockwave over his next jump, just getting that element of consistency across the board, because he doesn't want to use it on too many choke points, as it's going to take too many risks. Even using that 360, which will slow him down a tad, but also gaining that shockwave a little bit faster.
Absolutely, looking fantastic so far, no doubt about it. piling ahead, and you can see, just unfortunately for Fab, that number one is in the distance. RPM Alex looking solid here, and you kind of said it yourself, you know, feel like the battle with Nilo and Alex was certainly going to be a tightly contested one. Could have been a final in itself, and certainly has been actually in the past, as I mentioned that. But yeah, Fab, it does look to be gaining a little bit here on Ronin. That may be because Ronin's just taking his time, just making sure he plays it safe, doesn't want to wipe out anytime soon, although it is a pretty wide track that actually does suit this car pretty well.
It certainly does indeed. In terms of handling, it can be very difficult, which is why you see a few bumps in the road from some of these players. But in terms of the control, like, they make this vehicle look like it's just any other vehicle. The control and the mechanism they're using to make sure it's stable as possible, no matter what obstacles they've got around them, or sometimes the advanced tricks they use. It's just, again, something which is just a pleasure to watch. But again, Fab's still trying to catch up, but I do feel like running a couple of seconds ahead and isn't really going to let off the gas at all in the slightest as he crosses the finish line.
Yeah, easy one for RPM Alex, aka Ronin, to start things off, taking the first round on Shanghai there. It does mean that Himalayas will be up next. That is the mountain poles. We saw that was definitely a more technical race, though, that I feel Alex may be a bit more pressured under. I would say, and I think this is fair to say, that with the start being as it is, Alex got a small advantage because the ramp's his side. So Fab had to come across, which is obviously why they connected. So it immediately puts him at a disadvantage there.
Yeah, there is a few tracks like that where if you've got a better position, then it's going to cause a little bit of trouble for you. For example, if you've got like a ramp at the very start of one of these tracks and you spawn on the inside of it, then the question is going to be, is your opponent going to smash you into the wall straight away and using that double nitro at the start? Or is he actually going to let you go with him up the jump? It's so many questions to ask, but the thing is though, the very start of the game can dictate the pace of how things will pan out right at the very end. And it's a annoying situation sometimes, so it's just a matter if you want to, you know, give up some of that speed and then just carry on the race as normal, or it depends on the circumstances, really, depending on which track it is. But Himalayas, I'm sure we're not going to see anything like, you know, jumping onto the rails or anything like that to gain some extra speed. You know, that's something you would normally see in time trials if you're going to be extremely risky. But now Alex has already got that lead, and Fab, is it going to be feeling too good right now, as this is his last chance to try and bag that third place?
No, Fab's in the lead. Fab's in the lead. Fab's the man that's got it at the moment. We'll see whether Alex can get the chase on. Did have to, I mean, as we said, like, Alex had the better of it in the start. And Fab had the boost his side, so Alex had to make that transition. That is a mistake, though, from Fab. You could see it coming a mile away. He wanted to go left. He should have just accepted fate and gone for the right side. It's where it splits, and instead tried to force the issue on the left. It wasn't split-second decision-making at the time. Easy for us to say, but yeah, that's cost Fab dearly.
This is the skill gap with Asphalt, though. You know, like you rightly said, you know, if you're indecisive in terms of a decision you want to make, that's it. It's pretty much trouble, especially what you want to do. You just need to stick to what, not in terms of time trials, but the practice you've done. Just pretend it still is time trials, especially when you're this far apart, in order to try and catch up. And of course, there's a few risks you need to take with those barrel rolls on the edge of some of these ramps, or maybe having to ride some of these rails, of course, on this track, but that's way too risky in itself.
Oh, he missed the boost.
Yeah, he missed the boost, but Fab, though, still shockwave across the ramp, but Ronin, though, it's going to be no, but especially after that last crash. That's going to be it. Surely, you know, one of the most consistent players in this game is going to be able to take this with a 2-0 victory.
I saw it just a small advantage maybe as Alex missed that boost, but yeah, for Fab to wipe out a second time, just trying to push the limit a little too far there and trying to gain as much grain as he could. But yeah, he's a long way back now that Ronin could afford, I think, to wipe out here and still be able to get away with it. You know, for Alex, he's just doing his race. He's doing what he can, trying to go for it. You can see he's going for the 360s, trying to get as much nitro as he can to try and keep the boost going. But it's going to be a clean, easy 2-0 feel for Alex, taking down Fab here in the third place playoffs.
Yeah, true. That second half of the race, just like another day in the office. But congratulations to Ronin or Alex, whoever it is playing there. I think people will say that was a very unlikely matchup, and I'm not going to say the Nilo versus Alex matchup was an upset, because I do feel like Nilo is a very strong player as well. And if it was maybe Fab or someone else who actually defeated Alex, then yeah, I'll definitely class that as an upset, because not too familiar with these players. But, you know, commiserations anyway. Fab is still very good from what we've seen. Not really too many mistakes, but it is what it is, really. When you do have that first crash in the race, normally you do, you know, you're kind of halfway of giving up because it's just you're way too far behind and you're giving your opponent way too much of a lead.
Yeah, I mean, we should also point out that Alex has been in these multiplayer head-to-heads, like, for years.
Oh, yes.
For absolutely years. So he knows exactly what's there. You could see it there with Fab. He could easily have gone right. He could easily have gone right, carried on, and yes, he would have probably lost time, but, you know, it's easier to lose a little bit of time and maybe try and make up. But the second one here, I think he just clipped the barrier a little too fast. And that's what wiped him out. You know, I did see people in chat talking about how this car can sometimes, you know, if you hit the barrier just at the wrong point, it can wipe you out. But Ronan, aka RPM Alex, picking himself up the third place matchup there. And of course, the finals await. And that is something we're going to get to right now because we're going to move on smoothly into the grand finals. We're going to start things off with the Android side of things, which, yes, that means it is RPM Onio up against Jägermeister. Now, Onio was the runner-up in the spring. Jägermeister was the third place position in the spring. So both these drivers very experienced within this competition, and this, Lethal, is a best of 5.
It certainly is. Now, Onio, we've casted him a few times, even back in 2019 and a lot of it this year as well. Normally when he's against a lot of the other top players, like back a couple of years ago, we did have a few like top 8, top 12 kind of placements. But when you listen to players like Ferrari, etc., it's perfectly understandable. But he seems a lot better, a lot more refined this time round. But Jägermeister, I do remember, I think when you interviewed him last season, I noticed that he mentioned that he hasn't practiced a lot and very surprising he even made it to the finals here, considering that, you know, you have to have so much practice involved with Asphalt in order to keep up in terms of the times which your opponents are going to create across the board. But this time around, maybe Jägermeister's actually practiced a little bit more this time around in comparison, which is why he's looking a lot better and a lot more fresh and healthy in terms of his movement with the vehicle and how he controls it and the little risk he takes in order to, you know, be able to make it to the final here. So I'm impressed to see what Jägermeister can do here, but you can't count out Onio, especially what we've seen in terms of his past actions.
Okay, so we're going to be starting things off over in Shanghai. Once again, it will be the Pudong Rise, actually, layout this time around. So that's where the first race will take place. As I mentioned, it is a best of 5. So lots of action to take place here. Both drivers looking fantastic in their semi-finals with 2-0 wins. Who's going to come out on top?
Yeah, this is going to be it. Jägermeister placed third this time round, but you never know what can happen now. Onio's still got the lead, but Jägermeister makes a crucial error, which he wishes he did not make. But by then, though, he's still able to catch up. And look at this, Onio 316 on the ground to sacrifice on speed, but get that shockwave. But Jägermeister, though, look at that. Shockwave in just a little bit to try and overtake the lead and using the perfect nitro straight afterwards, but continue to use the single, switch to the double, breaks out, and now will be shockwaving around this corner. Perfect stuff from both of these players.
Yeah, absolutely. Smooth overtake there from Jäger. I think we love to know what wipeouts this time around. Both pretty much looking good. A cheeky little 360 from Onio to try and keep that boost alive. But Jäger's holding on to his, using it at the prime time to find the line. And this is looking like an absolute clinical drive from Jägermeister so far.
It certainly is. Both these players are looking very good, maintaining that nitro, using it at the best times possible. But look at the difference in it. Onio's actually gone around with the double 360, triple even now to try and catch up, which he has done, which is beautiful. He's got a lot more nitro. Look at the nitro difference so far. As Onio's going to use that shockwave to try and overtake him, but using the double nitro first, and then he's going to use the shockwave later on around this corner to try and overtake it. But still, though, Jägermeister better nitro management so far, even though Onio actually gained a little bit at the start of this last lap. But not too sure what Onio can do here. Just try and wiggle just a little bit, or maybe break nitro around some of these corners to use that shockwave, which he has done. But Jägermeister's done the exact same thing.
Definitely gained time, though. Look how much closer Onio is. Has he got the time to try and catch up? He knows he's up against it here. Goes for the spin, but I think he's running out of time. Jägermeister holds it. Ooh, that was tight. That was so tight to clip in the wall for Jägermeister. My word, that was millimeters, but I think it may well be enough. Over the line he goes. and Jägermeister will take the first race.
Yeah, this is what we expected from a final as well, especially on the Android side. And both of them played it perfectly in terms of using that perfect nitro around some of these corners for the double nitro for the handling and using the shockwave to try and overtake each other. But the only little bit, I was a little bit worried for Jägermeister and the start of that second race where when Onyo did the triple 360 and of course you saw there that Jägermeister didn't, I was like, okay, he's going to gain a huge amount of nitro in comparison. And what will he'll be able to do? But this is the problem you see. It's very, very difficult to overtake the leader on Asphalt no matter what you do. You have to really make some outrageous plays in order to try and overtake. But you kind of feel like Jägermeister did it with ease at one stage where he used to break nitro to use the shockwave. And he actually shortcoded only for like a second or two to get that momentum in terms of speed, overtake him, and then just broke instantly to then continue with the shockwave straight afterwards over the next jump. Just really great mechanics from both the players so far. And this is only the first race.
And that tight rail right as well. Don't forget about that for you nearly wiped out there and then. Let's get across to the second race. That is going to be the Caribbean Islands Paradise Resort. And it's going to be a top old start this time around. It is Onyo again that gets himself an early lead as they get things going. A tricky track, no doubt about it. A 360 spin for Jägermeister as he gets in lead now, as he do manage to go for the boost. Onyo just choosing not to go for that round kind of cost him a little.
Yeah, he decided to prioritise the inside lane, which is interesting, but even though it's done him a few favours, you saw Jägermeister had a little bit more shockwave towards the end of that last bit. So now Onyo still directly behind him, has slightly more nitro, and is going to be crashing into that water shockwave straight afterwards. It's still on his tail, and Jägermeister, he's just hoping that he can keep this consistency going forward. Now wall riding to maintain that speed, but also to shockwave off back straight afterwards. But it looks like Onyo will perfect nitro into the double straight up that next jump. A little bit of a slip up. It's actually cost him 100 kilometers an hour in that last part.
Yeah, very wobbly. Oh, I could see it coming a mile away. I just think he's never going to be able to recover from this one. And Onyo with the crash. That will cost him. And I don't think Jägermeister's going to make any mistakes. He chose not to go for the right-hand side, whether he just suspects that they maybe had that lead now. Oh, and it's all gone wrong for Onyo. Realizes, obviously, once you're so far behind, you've got to make some sort of unforced errors and just go for it. But this is Jägermeister setting himself for probably a 2-0 start for Jägermeister. That is a big, big lead. A match point, just 2 races in.
Yeah, it really is indeed. And, I'm glad me and you can, see into the future, because we both, 2 seconds even before he went into that jump, he went towards the middle, we were just like, yeah, it's happening. Jägermeister, though, has crashed, but then again, the lead is just way too much. He has to rely on Jägermeister to crash again, but I feel like Jägermeister now, because there's not really much time left in this race yet, he's just going to play it safe, make sure he just maintains the lead towards the very end before any more accidents occur. But you're right, though, match point already for Jägermeister.
Yeah, tight stuff there. I was about to mention, but before we got to it, before Jäger wiped out there, it's very tricky when they drop down for that ramp down low. We saw it last time in the spring. So many people were wiping out on that exact same position. So, third track, let's get on to that one because it's definitely a tough track, no doubt about it. But Rome is the next place we go, and it will be St. Peter's. Kickoff will be the layout we're heading into. Jägermeister on match point. The start could be critical here, Lethal.
Certainly will be indeed. Already Onyo using that shockwave a little bit early to try and get the lead, but they're crashing and bashing left and right. But it looks like Onyo is going to be one with the early lead, but risking that 360 just to gain that shockwave. And the problem with that is the fact that Jägermeister could see that as an opportunity to use that shockwave a little bit earlier to put him off guard, but it looks like it did not happen. So again, Jägermeister just falling behind a little bit, gets a little bit more durability with that shockwave towards that last jump directly behind him. Using the shockwave again, perfect timing down that narrow edge of the track. Will be going up above, and again you saw a little bit better barrel roll for Jägermeister in comparison to Onyo, but Onyo doing a great job maintaining this lead because, like you said here, D-Man, this is quite a difficult track in comparison to what we previously seen.
Both these players are fantastic to watch. That's a mistake from Jägermeister. A big, big mistake. And you can see Onyo disappearing into the distance. But let's not beat around the bush. This is a tricky track for both of these drivers. Down low goes Onyo as he manages himself through the tunnels and up and over the bridge, and he's keeping himself a pretty steady lead right now. He just needs to try and play it as safe as he can. A little bit of wall ride in there does bounce him, and if my eyes don't mistake me, Jägermeister is catching.
He certainly is, but it really takes a lot of skill and a lot of nitro management and a huge amount of risks to take up, or to risk rather, in order to try and catch up from 3 seconds. But that bump from Jägermeister could cost him even more. And like you said here, D-Man, did a great job catching up by about half a second to a second, but that bump earlier on has cost him once again probably at least a second, and it could be the curtain call now for Jägermeister in this race. But Onio's actually crashed, so this is Jägermeister's chance to try and catch up.
He's passed him. He's actually passed him in the jump, and oh my god, could have got himself a bite back here, but Jägermeister looks like it hasn't. Jägermeister wipes out as well. Onio's going to go blasting through, and Onio now back in the lead. What is happening in this race? Neither driver wants to win it, it seems, as they both have crashes. And oh my god, the nerves must be playing dividends right now. You can see on Jägermeister's screen that Onio is just ahead of him, but there is the finish line. Onio will get one back. It's 2-1.
Jesus, I don't know how to express that. That was an absolute mad last lap. And you can see Jägermeister was looking very good at one stage. And then you saw, obviously, the crash and that 1 second bump alongside the road halfway through that last lap. That's when I was like, okay, that's going to be it pretty much. But yeah, you're right, though. They are panicking quite a lot in these desperate situations.
I'm not sure Jägermeister realized he passed Onio, because he passed him as Onio wiped. So I'm not too sure. So from Jägermeister's point of view, he may have just been thinking, I need to go for it, I need to go for it, I need to catch him. I can't see him yet. Where is he? And then it was like literally wiped sort of almost a second later. Probably just realized, like, I think I passed him. Oh no. Just sort of, because it's all happening in a fraction of a second. It's very easy for us to sit here and you guys in chat to sit and watch this happen, and we can just sit and talk about it, and you know, we see everything that's happening. But when they're there with the phones in their hands and this in moment, oh my word. We're going over to Scotland, ladies and gentlemen. We get ourselves a fourth track. Let's see if the comeback king can come through. Onio. Wow, he's back in it. The cave is a tricky old track, Scotland, there's no doubt about it. This is a place you can crash out very easily.
Oh, you saw there as well. Jägermeister tried to land on top of him, but sadly was inches away from able to do that. But he could do it here, though, but instead he's going to go to the right-hand side, but already been overtaken by Onio. Nice, good shockwave usage there to break into this next jump, using that double nitro as efficiently as possible. And you saw Jägermeister had a little bit more speed, which is why he's able to catch up ever so slightly, just drifting now to get that shockwave to try and get past him. But these two are an absolute loggerheads here.
Absolutely, both going for it. But as I say, this is a very tricky track with this car. You can wipe out very easily. Jägermeister absolutely spiraling into the distance there, but Onio holds on the lead, and that boost managing is working well. Now Jägermeister goes for the big boost on the corner, doesn't gain enough, actually ended up going wider, way wider than Onio, and that gave Onio more time. And don't forget, Jägermeister still on effectively match point here. One win and he is done. He's the champion for Onio. He needs this one. We could be going into a fifth race, but oh, that is a disaster, I think, for Onio. Went out.
Oh, this is unbelievable. Even though a lot of the paths are quite straight on this track, it's very bumpy, which is why they're prioritizing the double nitro a lot more than expected here. But Onio, he's going to have to take some huge risks now, like you said, to keep himself in this matchup. But he could be too far behind, but Jägermeister's displayed some great showing in terms of his consistency across the track at high levels of speed, and he's happy to take these risks whilst being in the lead. So this is a problem that's going to occur as Jägermeister manages to take it, winning with a 3-1 series win, as Onio's going to be kicking himself a little bit. It was so close. The momentum was in his favour in this race, but sadly it wasn't to be. But congratulations to Jägermeister.
Oh, some absolute fantastic racing from both of these drivers, though, no doubt about it. Certainly some intense action, and I got to be honest, like just a fraction of a second here or there, it could have been anyone's. It could have been, but it is Jägermeister, as you say, that gets himself the victory once again. Let's have a look at some of the highlights from that match, because oh wow. We had so many moments where it was like, is he going to win it? Is he going to win it? Is he going to win it? They took over each other so many times.
Yeah, it's just a great display of skill once again, just doing everything they can. And this car this vehicle is not easy to control in the sliders, but they're making it look like they've driven this car like for the last 20 years or so. It's just been ridiculous, and some of the risks they've taken were fantastic, and even then though, it's very difficult once there's this vehicle. But this track you're watching now is definitely one of the most difficult in this tournament, and the way they were racing that first lap was nothing short of spectacular. But in the last portion of that race, especially on the last lap, it's very, very difficult. But once again, in this last race, you saw the double nitro used quite a lot, especially on these bumpier portions of the track, and not too many risks were involved. But it's a shame for Onyo, but great display of skill once again from all these players, and I'm not surprised we've seen Jägermeister, Furfur, my friends, and Onyo, the same three players from last season, back on this season in Android, and Sven, commiserations to him in that third place playoff.
Yeah, and I gotta be honest, I think I just caught a glimpse of it there. I think Onyo just boosted just before the jump, and it basically put him into the tree on the left-hand side. Got absolutely done, because I feel like we may well have had a fifth race either way. Oh, what a fantastic, fantastic race. Let's try and get a word with the driver himself. Jägermeister hopefully is out there, and hopefully we can get a word with him. The new winner, you know, third place in spring, and now gets himself the championship. Let's have a listen from Jägermeister. So I am joined by the winner of the Android Asphalt 9 Legends. It is Jägermeister, who's gone one step further this time around, was the third place last time out. But let's talk about the semi-finals first. You came up against a very tough opposition, and someone that you've been racing against for the whole year. Furfur, my friend, you took him out 2-0.
Basically, I was expecting very tough races against Furfur, since I know when I was playing back in the spring years, so he was very, very very tough opponent to play against, and it actually made me pay close attention to what he actually does and how could I actually win against him. I'll try to do my best, like was in this ESL, but unfortunately, Furfur was very unlucky with this car, and yeah, basically, Furfur played very well, but that's actually what happened, sadly.
Yeah, it happens. You got to take the look with as you get it. So let's talk about the final. Obviously, you came up against RPM Onyo, who has been in and around the Android scene for a very long time, and was runner-up in the spring. So how did you feel, obviously, coming up against him, and how did you feel the race went for you?
I didn't know how to play really against Onyo, since we didn't really get to play against each other back in spring as well. We played a few races together before they even started, and it actually turned out to be like very tough for us both to figure out how to win all the races.
Yeah, so I mean, what have you changed coming from spring into obviously the finals this time out? Because I know you were talking about, you know, you used to squeeze in practice as and when you could. Have you now found more time? Is that what's allowed you to go on and win?
That was one of few things that actually allowed me to change the approach to what should I play. Especially when this event was with faster cars, so I definitely had to think how to use this car. So yeah, that's basically how everything turned out.
Excellent, excellent. And what's coming up for Jägermeister now? You are the champion. What is next for the champion?
Carry on and see what happens next. Obviously. I got few events already to compete in, so I will just hope everything goes good for me.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations once again, Jägermeister, the champion of Android. Absolutely fantastic to hear from the winner, Jägermeister, there. So congratulations once again to him. So superb stuff. Amazing. What a comeback. And a new champion from what we had in spring, of course, Adidas in the spring, and now Jägermeister. Of course, there is a few more tournaments within the Asphalt scene, so it's going to be very interesting to keep our eyes on that to see how it progresses. But let's move on, because we're not done yet here at the ESL Mobile Open. It is time for the iOS Grand Finals. RPN Kenchim up against Nilo Lethal.
Yeah, it's going to be another spectacular final here. And yeah, you saw as well earlier on in that interview with Jägermeister standing loud and proud this time around in comparison to before. But I'm really glad for him that he's able to put more practice in and be able to win on the Android side. But yeah, Kenchim versus Nilo have absolutely not a Scooby what could happen here. We know a lot about Nilo in terms of his skill and what he can bring to the table in comparison. But Kenchim, though, it could be a little bit of a dirty player, D-Man, from here and there. I've only seen him in one race, but that's enough to, tell the tale a little bit and understand what shenanigans he could come up with here. But Nilo's going to be expecting that.
I feel that he kind of just answered what Fab did to him. It's not fair to call him dirty outright just like that. I mean, that's a bit harsh. But yeah, I mean, he got rammed first, and then he what goes around comes around and all that. So Kenchim definitely gave as good as he got, that's for sure, in that semi-final. It was a brutal one, but let's get into the finals, ladies and gentlemen. If you just joined us, we are into the best of 5 finals. Shanghai Pudong Rise is where we're going to be. It's going to be Nilo up against RPM Kenchim.
Let's see what happens here as Kenchim does get the inside lane of the track, and we'll get a nice little bit of nitro going across with the 360s flying out from both of these players and the double nitro for that handling. But Kenchim's actually decided to prioritize the perfect nitro towards the ends of that last bend. Double nitro now over the next jump, but Kenchim's looking really good so far at the start of his race.
Absolutely, he's blasted away from the beginning here, and you can see he's very much in the distance for Nilo, so Nilo's going to have to pull out the stops to try and gain this one back. Of course, it's 2 laps if you just joined us. Where have you been all night? We're on to the final right now for iOS. We've had Jägermeister, the winner of the Android. Sorry for spoilers if you did just join us, but right there is going to be how it played out. But now it's all about whether Nilo can gain ground, because Kenchim is not putting a foot wrong. Hopefully, no cast to curse as he hits a guy, the tunnel. Oh, and that's brought Nilo right back into it.
I'm saying nothing after that last escapade there, but Kenchim still has the lead, which shows how much time he was ahead in comparison to Nilo. And Kenchim could do it again, but how much pressure is on his shoulders now, knowing that his opponent is directly behind him, hasn't got as much nitro as me. Nilo could overtake him here with the perfect nitro going up his next jump, using that double nitro for the better handling to stay on course and stay on that part of the track. But Nilo, though, is not letting off at all. He's realised he's been given a lifeline here in the side of the track. Will shockwave past him potentially if it can get round him, but he's still not able to. Both of them barrel roll up at last jump, but Kenchim actually fails that barrel roll, which means Nilo will get the additional nitro to go past, and it's going to be at least 3 or 4 seconds ahead.
Yeah, job done, I think, for Nilo there. So just gaining, keeping the pressure. You could see it on Kenchim's screen, just kept that nose, just kept nudging in behind him. That pressure exceeding. Now it's all about whether he can hit this shortcut right. And oh, that was close from Nilo, but he absolutely nails it. That's where the mistake could have come, because now he's just going to sweep on through over the finish line, and Nilo will take the first race.
Kenchim looked a lot better in terms of his mechanics, his fundamentals. It was brilliant. Nilo was kind of scratching his head thinking, what on earth happened in the first 30 seconds? It was just better nitro management and the tricks he was doing across the course, and just making sure that Kenchim was trying to, you could say, prioritize the perfect nitro over some of those jumps early on instead of the double nitro, and that's where the risks really paid off to get that 1 to 1.5 second lead, which Nilo was more relying on a double nitro. I was thinking that Kenchim wouldn't take this many risks early on, but actually he did. Kenchim didn't really have a care in the world. He was just like, you know what, I'm just going to fly away and just take all these risks and maintain the lead. And it's a shame though, because it could have been a different story pictured if he didn't make that one major fault in that second lap. But we'll see what happens in this next race.
Yeah, it can always be different, obviously, moving from the hot laps effectively, and, can risk it as many times as you want, because you just, start again. It doesn't happen that way when you're in these tournament competitions. Now, just an edge there. Nilo was expecting a bit of a ram maybe from Kenchim. He just nudged away, but it goes to show, can he do the dirty tricks himself? And he absolutely can. Nilo nudging Kenchim away from the boost, the jump there, and Kenchim missing the second one, but Nilo wipes out. All that shenanigans has backfired.
Oh, dearie me, that's just karma, team. In all fairness, from what we've seen so far, Kenshin now with a very healthy lead, and this is his time to maintain it. And he can. Don't take too many risks, don't do too many tricks. Just caution is absolutely vital across some of these jumps. Unless you want to do some of these 360s in a straight and narrow portion of the course, then that's perfectly fine. But this is a long enough lead now, but still is wall riding across these jumps, using his double nitro perfectly. Going up the next one here, still going to barrel roll to make sure he can maintain it, but of course keeping that lead to make Nilo feel that there's absolutely no way to come back in this race. And I'm definitely sure that Nilo's feeling that right now going into the second lap.
Yeah, but there is so many places where you can make mistakes on this track. You know, so many risky little skips, and you can see the skips and the jumps and little moments where mistakes can be made and time can be gained and lost at the moment. But Kenchim very much with that healthy lead, and Nilo with a lot of work to do to try and gain the time here on the Caribbean Resort, of course. The Paradise Resort, Caribbean Island, of course, is where we're at. Bit of a mix of both. Either way, Kenchim looking golden. Now, I feel like he's just racing himself right now, and that's where he could make a mistake, because we've seen him doing it already. Now, here comes one of the risky jumps coming up in just a moment, where you're going to have to boost around, you drop down, and you almost hop skip. Here he goes. Is he going to go for it? No. And I don't blame him. That is probably one of the riskiest jumps on the circuit. You can see Nilo does go for it and sure to give him the boost, but Kenchim did not need to risk it. We're tied in the series, one apiece.
And he sort of finished it off in style with a nice crash at the end, which he didn't do in the first race, which is fantastic. And you're right, Bo, there was a few crucial jumps which he did not risk at all in the sliders. There's no point. The finish line is literally within a few seconds away. There's absolutely no need for it. And if you do take these risks, then you're obviously very silly, but it doesn't matter, because you saw there the only jumps he took involving the barrel rolls were the ones which either a guarantee or on a straight part of the circuit. And that last jump was not straight at all in the slightest in the picture perfect world. So he made sure just to stay on the track, no risks involved, gets the lead, perfectly done there. So yeah, tied game like you already said, and excited to see how these next few races pan out for these two.
Absolutely. So, third track of the day will be Rome, of course, St. Peter's kickoff. This is the track we saw both Onyo and Jägermeister making many, many mistakes. Let's get it on your screen here and see if we have a repeat performance, because both of them wiped out 2 or 3 times within that race, and the lead changed hands many times. It's Nilo, though, that gets the first start.
Yeah, I think we can say between the last two opponents who are actually playing on this track, it went from organised chaos to just pure chaos. It was just mad. But you can see that Kenchim directly behind Nilo, trying to do everything he can, has a little bit more shockwave in comparison, but is only able to close the gap by a tenth of a second here. His barrel's looking good for both these players, but Nilo's the one who's got a little bit extra nitro, but that doesn't matter because they're on a curved part of the course anyway, so there's no way either player could have used that shockwave. But Kenchim doing a great job just staying on his tail, use that double nitro to keep up with him in terms of the handling as well. Bash just a tad, but I don't think it's going to matter too much. Just Nilo doing a great job maintaining this lead.
Absolutely maintaining, but it is still very tight as we see them going off. Oh,
no.
Kenchim! You saw it coming, and I feel like he was just indecisive. Because Nilo stayed high, I think Kenchim was like, oh, I should stay high instead of going low. And it may well have cost him. Let's not write it off yet, though, because we saw this with Onyo. He made mistakes, and Jägermeister caught up, and then they passed back on as we go into the second lap.
Yeah, we saw, 4 or 5 major crashes or bumps over the course of those 2 laps. It can easily happen here as well. And Kenchim, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens to him, just due to the fact that he's in the position now. He needs to take a huge amount of risks, and the risks involved in this track is just really, really difficult. And I'm not too sure if Kenchim wants to take these risks or just rely on Nilo to make a major fault at some stage, which he won't. And you can see Kenchim already using that 360 before the landing to try and shockwave over the next portion of this track, but not really too sure what more he could do here. Nilo's already nearly finished this race, and Kenchim needs to pull something out the bag here.
Absolutely, Kenchim's got to go Oh, and it's really down to Nilo, and really the time is running out for where mistakes could be made, I feel, for Nilo. We did see the wipeout coming shortly, but he drops down successfully through the tunnel, up over the bridge, looking pretty clean so far, and I don't think there's really any errors to come. It goes over the line, and that is 2-1 for Nilo here at Rome.
Yeah, I think it was. I feel like Nilo was about 3 seconds ahead. I mean, it's about 4 or 5 due to the fact that some, I wouldn't say bad executions, but these executions had to be made by Kenshin, or else he would have had absolutely no chance. But it was going to happen. This track is probably one of the worst to be behind on. And at the same time, if you do need to play it safe, I think this track's also a lot easier on yourself in order to have a lot more patience, discipline in order to maintain that lead. It's a very difficult track to come back from if you're behind, because you've seen the risks involved. Even when you're, don't even need to try and maintain a lead in some occasions, you're still going to have some bumps along the road. You saw it against the 2 players earlier on, where there was about 4 or 5 major faults occurring back and forth. But still, though, that was a lot cleaner from both these players. I respect Kimchin for taking those risks, but just didn't work in his favour once again. But still, then that means it's going to be match point now for Nilo.
Yeah, much cleaner as well than the Android side of things. But it does mean we're going to Scotland. Let's have a look at this one. The Cave. We know this is a tricky track. There's no doubt about it. Let's get things underway. It will be Nilo, actually, that just slices ahead of Kenshin there and gets himself a chance. But Kenshin was holding that shockwave to try and boost up behind him. Let's see if it pays off.
Interesting. So Nilo actually decided to use the double nitro early at the beginning to get an early lead at the start, but Kenshin decided to save the nitro to get the shockwave and maybe plan to overtake him afterwards. It did not work out, and Kenshin now going to fall a little bit behind because of that. Does have the shockwave in his back pocket ready to use. Both of them use it and almost in sync with each other, and both use a shockwave again to get across onto this next portion of the bridge though. But what can Kenshin do here? I kind of feel like with this track he will need to use that double nitro quite a lot on numerous occasions with how bumpy this track can be. And the problem is he's going to have to use perfect nitro instead of the double nitro on some of these occasions across some of the portions of this track in order to close the gap onto Nilo.
I'll tell you what, both of them doing pretty much a perfect race. Kenshin actually missing the boost there, getting a little out of control, and that gave Nilo a bit more of a time. He got himself the shockwave ready to go as well. Kenshin now has it, had gained quite a bit of time throughout the lap, but lost it a little bit towards the end of the lap now. And now Kenshin once again gaining that time back just a touch here as they go through the boat section. A risky 360 from the 2 of them, both pretty much neck and neck and looking like perfect racing so far.
Yeah, on this track, when you're behind, you're very limited to try and figure out ways to catch up on your opponent. But Kenshin there, you saw him trying to risk the barrel roll on that last jump. Did not succeed, which means he's going to be a little bit further behind, and it had to be done. He finishes it in the end, and Nilo is going to be the winner here on the iOS side. 3-1 victory. But I don't blame Kenshin. He had to take that risk. He was almost on the final bet.
Oh, fantastic stuff. And Nilo gets himself the victory. Some cracking racing, honestly, from both of them. And really not many errors. As we saw from the Android side, there was quite a few errors in the finals this time around. Just as the one error here and there, Nilo was not making mistakes, it seems.
No, he wasn't really too bothered. Even though he was like half a second to a second ahead, he was very comfortable how he could maintain that lead. On that last track, it's not easy to come back from. Like I said, there's not really too many risks you can take in order to try and close the gap on your opponent. But on the odd couple of occasions Kenshin had, it just didn't pay off, and he saw that it's getting further and further behind, but that was about it. But you're right though, I kind of feel like on the iOS side, especially in this final, the consistency was a lot better, a lot cleaner racing in comparison. And yeah, it was nice to see a player like Kenshin come out of the woodwork. We know he's an RPM player anyway, but nice to see someone else make it into the finals here for Asphalt. It wasn't his day this time round, but we'll see at some point in one of the future Asphalt tournaments in the competitive scene in the future.
Absolutely fantastic stuff. Just to refresh you guys' mind, that is the path to the finals. Ronan, aka RPM Alex, taking the 3rd place over Fab, and Nilo taking 1st place overall in the finals over RPM Kenshin, who will be the runner-up. So congratulations to Nilo. Fantastic stuff. And of course, we managed to get a word from the champion himself. So Nilo, let's see what he's got to say. So we're joined by the winner of the iOS Asphalt 9 Legends. It is Nilo. You've made it, buddy. And I want to say that obviously because you were the runner-up in the spring. But let's rewind. Let's get to it. Let's get back to the semi-finals. And let's talk about Ronin, aka RPM Alex. A quick 2-0 over Alex to start things off. How did that race go for you?
I remember the Caribbean race. That race was just hectic. Like, I think we both made errors, but it was just a crazy race. I couldn't really explain what happened. It was just wild. And the second race, I remember I got quite far ahead after yeah. And that one was interesting as well. That race was better because it was less crazy, to be honest.
And before I get to the final, like obviously, you know, as a racer, you must prefer racing multiplayer, right? Because obviously, when we see the qualifiers, it's all just time trials. You just solo. There's no one to compete against other than yourself. Do you prefer that mode, the hot lapping, effectively, or do you prefer actually racing people?
I remember, like, when I first started playing this game, I only played multiplayer basically. So I think I prefer multiplayer often more than TLE.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. And maybe that's what's helped you out, because here you are, you obviously reached the finals, taking down RPM Kenshin 3-1 overall. Let's talk about the races in general. How do you feel that went for you? Obviously, it went well because you won. but how do you feel it went? Was like anything in there that you felt you could have improved on, or really errors you made?
I think because we're driving the Bugatti Diva, and that car has a really, really wide drifting radius, so it was quite hard to control, and I think I made a bit too many errors, and I think Kenshin also made some errors, but I got luckier in the end. Yeah.
And overall, is there anything in there that you felt you like, at any point you thought, I've got him, this is easy? Was that like one of the races you just thought this is in the bag?
To be honest, I don't think so, because driving the Bugatti Diva is kind of an unstable car, and you can easily get physics, so you kind of just have to stay focused until the end of the race. Yeah.
Excellent, like a true professional. Let's talk about your training regime for this. Obviously, now that you're champion, what is it that you've done to take you that one step further? Because obviously you were runner-up to Adidas in the spring, and now you've obviously come out as the winner this time out. Is there any sort of thing you've changed practice-wise?
I think I just played a lot more multiplayer this time, to be honest, and just kind of got to understand the Bugatti Diva as well a lot, and kind of had to predict how that car would work. But yeah, that's about it.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. You are our iOS champion. Have you got anything to say to your fans out there?
Thanks for watching me. I'll try and upload more consistently on my YouTube channel. Yeah, that's about it.
Absolutely. Check out his YouTube channel if you haven't already. Thank you very much, and congratulations. That is Nilo, the champion of iOS.
Thanks for having me.
Great to hear from him, and yes, do check out his YouTube channel. He promises to upload more.
I will.
And it is interesting to obviously hear what he has to say. Like you said, you know, the car is tricky. It was down to obviously the drivers. It's definitely a tricky car to handle. Yes, it's fast, but hard in the corners. Great to hear him talking about the Caribbean race with Alex as well, because if you remember back to that one at the start of the show in the semi-finals, that's where they sort of traded places back and forward, and honestly, either could have won it. And you know, Alex had to go right, Onio went left. Alex was leading at the time. Onio got the right boost and came out just about in front of Alex to take the win. So great races tonight.
Well, that's the problem with the vehicle, isn't it? It's just the stability of it, but that's what increases the skill gap from the great drivers to the best drivers in the world really coming into this. But yeah, talking about the brackets, you see there, Jägermaster is the player, the racer, the man himself who won on the Android section. I'm very happy for him actually, because sadly he did place third, but then again, at least this time around, he's had to put a little bit more practice in, standing tall and proud knowing that all that practice paid off. To beat someone in the likes of Onyo is a huge feat in itself. But further, my friends, okay, we see him again in the third place playoff, but he improves his placement by 1 as well.
Absolutely fantastic stuff. Congratulations to Jägermeister. So as he said in his interview, upping his practice considerably and certainly absolutely paying off for him. So congratulations, champion there. And of course, Nilo, who we just heard from there, taking down RPN Kenshin in what was a pretty tight race and a pretty tight race, and a pretty clean race overall between the two.
Yeah, I was very impressed. It's nice to see Nilo come out with the victory, with the W overall. I do feel like, it's nice to see him get a win underneath his belt at some stage. I still feel like Alex is way overdue. Like, I'm surprised he may have had one in the past, maybe some competitive events, but the ones we've casted, we've just not seen it yet. But it's just a matter of time if it's like next year, year after, 2030, I don't know when, but it's going to happen at some stage.
Asphalt 14 down the line is going to be there. I mean, in fairness, I feel like we've covered him since the early World Cyber Games day. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much to Lethal once again, as always, joining me for the Asphalt Fun. Congratulations to our champions. We will see you again next time. Enjoy your night.